the president's job approval rating has suffered. It's gone down a few points.
I'm not going to say drastically a point of no return. That's going too far. But continuing this trend puts him in a much difficult position to gain support back.
He has defined that big, beautiful bill as that tipping point, and it's controversial. So one of the questions we have to ask ourselves, if that big, beautiful bill passes, it's perceived as a victory for the president because he wants it, but is it really going to be a victory out there with voters? These numbers could turn into free fall.
And I'm asking the question politically in terms of the president, are we seeing a tipping point?
It's Monday, June 30th, and this is another edition of Real Polling in Real Time with Zogby. And we're Zogby. I'm John. Hello, Jeremy. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, just fine. And we have this hot new poll that we just completed and we're rolling out. And, it's about Donald Trump and about how he's doing, where he stands. We released some information late last week and over the weekend, and now we're continuing. And here we are on the verge. This is an important week. The president has set a deadline to pass his big, beautiful bill with only Republican support. He can only afford 3 defections from the Senate, and it's still guesswork as to whether it's going to pass or not. There are serious, legitimate questions by a few senators. One is obviously about the deficit and the tax cut and affording the tax cut. Some of it has to do with the social safety net and the fact that there are serious cuts to Medicaid and Obamacare and so on. And so in the senators' deliberations, certainly is the size of the budget, the additional trillions of dollars in the deficit itself, but also because they are politicians and their job is to be reelected, is to take a look at what the impact of this big controversial budget can be on their reelection or election chances in 2026. And so we've got some numbers and we'll have some insights. But we did see overall that the president's job approval rating has suffered. It's gone down a few points. That's overall. We saw that it's gone down on a number of issues and how public views his capacity to handle those issues, including immigration and the economy and so on. But you've got some interesting numbers that you're going to post about just where exactly those declines are taking place. And so why don't you pick it up from here?
Yeah, and I think you set the table as far as this week being pivotal. We happen to have numbers, up-to-date numbers, as we go into this next crucial week for the president. And if you look at the top-line data, as you pointed out, the overall approval rating for President Donald Trump has slipped. And then we narrowed it down or drilled down to key issues like immigration and diplomacy. And those are 2 issues, particularly what happened in Iran over the last couple of weeks. And these stories have been trending. And so this data captures that. And so, but what happens when we drill down to important voting groups, some of which we'll list here are either key and or bellwether groups. They gave us an indication of where things are blowing in the wind. And so we'll put these up here and we'll leave these. We're not going to go over all of them because there's about 15 groups. But just repeating again, voters overall in our May 29th poll, 48% were approving of the president's job. Today, that's at 45. In terms of voters, that translates to a significant number of voters. We're talking about in the millions, not tens of millions, but certainly enough that could make an impact. What I thought was particularly interesting is the bedrock of the MAGA base and Trump's base, conservative voters. We see slippage. In May 29th, it was at 81% approval for the president. It's now down to 76. We'll look into why we think that might be. Another essential group is our men. And just a month ago, 55% were approving of President Trump's job to date. Today stands at 51. Of course, we've been covering independents all along, and that's been trending downward over the long run. But these two groups of conservatives and men, that's more of a recent thing. With independents, yet again, we see another 5 percentage point from 40% approval down to 35 today. And then a couple more I'm going to get into because they're key is weekly Walmart shoppers. Mm-hmm. That's something you've been covering for well over a decade. And just a month ago, 64% approved, and today 59%. It's 3, 4, 5 percentage points among groups that we expect to be with the president, that are firmly with the president, and seeing dropping.
Let me interject something, if I could.
Well, I need to make an important point here that I'm building up to. That's kind of like the phenomenon of the tipping point. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking the question politically in terms of the president. Are we seeing a tipping point? And so I have other data that I will get to, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that point. I've been following the weekly Walmart shoppers since 2000, actually, and every presidential candidate who has won since 2000 has won weekly Walmart shoppers. That includes, we used to think of this as a bedrock, traditional values, conservative constituency, but Barack Obama won them twice, and Joe Biden won them in 2020, and the Republicans who won the presidency from George W. Bush on won with weekly Walmart shoppers. So they're actually a pivotal group. But go ahead.
Yeah, and another pivotal group. And so let's look at where Trump hasn't had a lot of slippage, or maybe even some gains, and I think that's important. But another new pivotal group, the new media consumers, those who place their trust most in podcasts and social media platforms like X. And they are, they have been wild about Trump, although I do see a little bit of bleeding from 56% last month, approval down to 54. Hispanics up a point, 53% approving. Last month, 54 today. Born agains, same thing, 1 percentage point added for approval from 69 last month to 70 today. So there are groups that are still with Trump, and maybe even a little bit more, but nonetheless, the ones that I covered, conservatives, men, independents, weekly Walmart shoppers, and new media consumers. And then, I'm going to throw this one out there too, veterans, a little bit of slipping, -2 in approval. That's something to pay attention to. Now, I want to just drill down one level further and look at the approval rating of Trump's diplomacy style. We would ask, do they approve or disapprove of his style in diplomacy, engaging other nations and leaders? Last month, that was at 46%. Today, it's at 42%. Immigration, which has been Trump's signature issue going back almost 10 years ago, one that really helped to put him on the scene, and one that he was performing very well with up until this moment. Up until just, a month ago, a strong majority were with the president, 56%. Today, that dipped below 50% for the first time. He's at 49. And so this all goes back to, this could be a key moment for the Trump presidency, one where I'm not going to say drastically a point of no return. That's going too far. But continuing that trend, continuing this trend puts him in a much difficult position to gain support back. And that's something that needs to be paid attention to for the White House.
And it's very important, as you point out, there is this slippage. It's not a free fall. It's not devastating, but it comes at a very important tipping point time. He has defined that big, beautiful bill as that tipping point. And it's controversial. It's as controversial among his MAGA base as it is as the attack on the Iran nuclear facilities was. It's splitting the MAGA movement. And apparently so is immigration as well. But first and foremost about the bill, there are serious concerns about Medicaid cuts and Obamacare cuts because I have found over the years in polling in individual states, and I'm going to share with you and everyone else, Missouri. Now, Missouri, I've polled many, many times, and there is the very liberal St. Louis and suburbs in the east, and the liberal Kansas City and suburbs in the west. But really, the center state, the rest of the state, what they call it, is very rural and very conservative. But I found that Medicaid was iconic among all of these voters, liberals and conservatives as well. That's a piece of the safety net that even though for middle-class voters, it's for someone else, it's for poor people who can't afford and are below the poverty belt or a little bit above, low on the poverty belt. It is a popular item. And in this bill, it's very controversial. In fact, you see that in the personage of Josh Hawley, U.S. Senator, very conservative senator who has been, with Donald Trump since day one. But that has been his major beef with this bill, has been cuts to Medicaid. President says it's cuts of waste and corruption, but most others are saying no, it's actually going to throw people off of Medicaid, throw people off of Medicaid portions of the Affordable Care Act. So this is a very pivotal week. So one of the questions we have to ask ourselves, if that big, beautiful bill passes, it's perceived as a victory for the president because he wants it, but is it really going to be a victory out there with voters? These numbers could turn into free fall, especially with $4 trillion additional deficit, something that is now a crusade by Elon Musk, Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, and others.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think we covered a good amount of data in one day. So the game plan is to get through the week, get through the holiday week, and then see where we're at.
Right. One further point, and I got a minute or so. We tested a couple of horse races. And how would Donald Trump do today against some of the leading Democrats? And we can take these for what they're worth. Against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at AOC, it's Cortez actually, 45% to Trump 43%. That 43% is not good for an incumbent president. Against Gavin Newsom, governor of California, Newsom 46%, Trump 44%, and identical numbers against Rahm Emanuel, who is not as well known as either of the other two. A 2-point, we're going to put that in quotes, lead. The important thing is that at this point in time for an incumbent president against really no iconic Democrats or leading Democrats at this point, the president is polling in the low 40s. That's something to think about as we talk about a tipping point moment in his presidency.
Yeah, a Trump fatigue question mark, or the next one would be the next level tipping point question mark.
Excellent. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let us know out there. Tell us your feelings. Have a good week.
Yeah, have a great holiday week.